Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I am back working in Small Victories, the new book by Johanna Basford, and we're going to keep on going here on this page. So I'm thinking we had a little bit of a vote on my Instagram and this little frog here ended up being the winner. It was between that one and the butterfly above. So let's get started. Now I'm going to be using my Faber-Castell Polychromos again. I want to stick to a similar color palette, but because this being water, I want to bring in some blue tones with this, and I decided with the frog I didn't want to do a green traditional frog, so I went and had a look at various colorful frogs, and I've decided on doing one of those poison dart frogs. They have this fantastic combination of orange and blue, but I'm doing it slightly different just based on the way this frog is drawn. So we're going to do an orange head and a blue body. But first I'm just going to use my May green here, and I'm just going to color in just like a base layer on all of these little lily pad leaves here. As usual, I'll be working in light layers and building my layers up as I go. And I'm thinking with the water as well, I don't want it like the traditional blue. I'm thinking of doing a bit of a combination of maybe some earth green and an ultramarine, just so we get that little bit of that green sort of pond water undertones in there. But I'll probably do a little bit of a mix of a few different colors, I reckon. So now that we laid down our base layer of the May green, I'm going to go in with my permanent green olive, and I'm going to start to build up my shadows nice and slowly. I will add in some darker colors obviously on top of this, but we're going to go in light, and I'm going to be following those little line markings that are already there, and then sort of blend my way into towards the center of each of those little, or call it like little pizza slices or little pie pieces or whatever you want to call it. They kind of look like little pie charts, but I'm leaving that May green in the center, like a little line through, so we have that little bit of a highlight happening. So as you can see, just by layering in the sort of mid-tone green, we're already creating a fair bit of shape to these leaves. It kind of look like it's going down where the little lines are and then kind of curving up, almost like a bit of a scalloped kind of edge there. So it just goes to show that, you know, you can create shape with just like a few little layers. If you want to go super simple, just use two colors. You can use a highlight and like a mid-tone, and if you then want to go fancy, go with one shade darker as well. You don't have to use 5-6 different colors to create a nice looking leaf. Today we're just going to go relatively simple, even though I am bringing in a couple more colors. But I'm going to stick to mainly greens with just a tiny little bit of, I'm thinking, dark indigo, just for the darkest shadows. So, who of you have started colouring in this book yet? Are you loving it? I'm absolutely in love with this book. It is so pretty, but I'd love to hear what you guys think, and if you have a favourite page in there so far that you've had a look at or maybe started colouring, I'd love to hear about it. So pop it down in the comments below and let's see what you're all working on at the moment. And of course, I do hope you are enjoying this video. If you are, I'd love it if you'd take the time to give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, I would absolutely love to have you subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to get notified whenever I post new content. So I'm just working on just darkening up my little line works here. So going in with a chrome oxide green, I'm sort of just going alongside the line, and then I'm going to go just on that, well, inner outer edge like you're seeing I'm doing now. I'm going to have that little edge bit there, have that a little bit lighter so that we get a bit of a difference between the edge and that inner bit, because you see some of these sort of leaves, they have that little folded up edge on them, or the lily pads, and so I thought I wanted a bit of a difference there between just the inner and the outer area there. So, and then I'm going to go over after this, I'm thinking of grabbing in my earth green yellowish and just sort of go over a little bit to not blend, because it's not a blending, it's still layering, but it sort of softens up a little bit of these sort of a little bit harsher lines that I'm adding in now. I'm still not pushing in super hard, but it isn't like the crazy light that I usually do. I am bringing probably like a medium sort of pressure here, just to get a little bit more down. And as I'm going slightly in, then I'm sort of lightening it all up a little bit. So this one here is my earth green yellowish. It's 163, I think, and it's similar to the May green, but the May green actually has the name still written on it, so that's how you can see the difference between the two of them when I'm holding them up. So I'm just sort of blending in a little bit there. I'm still leaving that highlight in the center there, where I'm not going over the top where I had the first layer. So we're still getting that sort of little scallop, that little raised middle there, and then obviously going darker down the towards the lines. But I'm just sort of adding in a little bit on that outer area as well, just to kind of get a little bit more shape and things on there, still leaving that highlight in the middle. So I'm just bringing in the dark indigo now, and I'm just going to work on my darkest areas. Again, just especially sort of where any overlaps are happening as well, I'm using the dark indigo just for a little bit of an overlap shadow happening there. So for the little flowers, I'm just going to bring in some of the colors that we used for the mushroom up the top, just to kind of get a little bit of that same color scheme happening and to make the whole page kind of make sense color wise. So as I said, I'm not making it completely identical, but I just want to make sure that we have some of those same base colors, even though I'm bringing in a little bit of blue in this one. So just using a little bit of that red violet that I used for the dark areas on the mushroom, I particularly want to go in for these little petals that are lying a little bit behind and going in darker there at the base. So for the top petals, I'm kind of just going to go in on the line that runs down from the center and towards the outer areas. But I did end up at the end actually adding a little bit more of sort of the dark color, and I completely forgot to film it. So you will see in the final reveal that the flower looks a little bit darker than what it does here. So you could go in either with a little bit more of the red violet, or if you feel like you want a darker color just to get a little bit more oomph, you could also use the Caput Mortuum violet as well, or even like a brown tone or a sepia to get like that nice dark shadow on those back petals, just in case you want that contrast a little bit more. So with the poison dart frogs, they quite often have this sort of orange, it starts like orangey, yellowy kind of areas on from the head and so down across their backs, and then they have, it goes over into like blue tones, and then they have blue on the far back and then on their legs. But because this little frog here had such a distinct difference between the head and the body, I just decided to have my sort of orangey tones on the head, and then we're going to do the blue tones on the body and the little legs. So I'm just going in with the dark Naples, and then I'm going to go in now with the Terracotta, which are the same colors again that we used up on the flowers in the top picture that we did just a few days ago. So I'm just sort of starting to layer in this. I'm still thinking how I want to layer in and where I want the highlights. I'm kind of winging it a little bit. And I started making a bit of a line sort of going in here. In the end, I ended up just getting rid of that line, and I brought my sort of orange and then sanguine all the way out to the beginning of the mouth there, and I just had a slightly lighter area just where we have the difference between then the orange and then going over into the blue. So I did, as I said, I just ended up going in a bit more further out there than what I showed right here. So you can, if you want to, if you're following along, just bring that orange all the way out to the tip of the nose. So with the blue areas, I want sort of divided into here into little segments. So I'm just going to run this sky blue just sort of down the center of each segment, kind of where those little dots are. Now with those dots later, I will go in probably with my dark indigo, because the that particular frog has got these really dark spots, kind of black looking, but I've kind of decided not to use much black in these pictures, so I'm going to go in with my dark indigo instead for my darkest areas. So I'm just sort of running this down the center, just so I got like a light blue there that I can work with as a highlight. And then I'm going to use my darker blues where the sort of lines go, and up where the head starts as well. I kind of want the blue to sort of looks like it's a bit darker. Almost looks like it's got like a little orange hood on that casts a little bit of a shadow, if that makes sense. But yes, I'm just sort of adding in a little bit of these sort of lighter colors first, just to make sure that I have a bit of a highlight happening, and then we're going to darken things up. So as you may have noticed, I am working sort of from each line and then a little bit inwards and then leaving that bit of a highlighted area in the center. Same principle as I used with the little lily pad leaves as well, just leaving a simple highlight where things kind of are a little bit raised. So that's the kind of technique that I'm working on now, just making sure that we have, you know, the dips and the tops and the dips on the body there, and just making sure that the whole picture kind of makes sense a little bit. But I'm not going too crazy. This isn't realism as such. I just want to make sure that this frog has got a little bit of shape. So here I'm actually going to do exactly like I did with the lily pad leaf, and I'm kind of using not the very lightest color but the second to lightest, which is the light ultramarine, and I'm just kind of blending in this a little bit to get a nicer sort of gradient on my color now that I've got some of those darker areas down. I just want to make sure that it sort of flows a bit nicer and we don't have super harsh lines on this particular frog. Like obviously in some pictures you can, it makes more sense, but I just wanted this one to be a little bit more soft. So I'm just going to go in now with my Sakura Gelly roll. I'm using a 08. If you have a 05, you can use that one as well. Mine has just dried out at the tip and I haven't been able to get it to work for a little while. So I'm a little bit stuck with my 08 at the moment. But if you want a slightly finer tip and you have the 05, you can use that one. So I'm just removing the outlines on the flowers here. I will also probably go in and remove the outline on the lily pads, I'm thinking, just to soften them up a little bit. And I'll go in on certain areas on the frog, but not the entire thing. I just sort of want maybe on the feet and things where I've got like a highlighted side. I'm going to just go in and do those a bit later. So I'm going to come back to those little rocks a little bit later. Now I want to lay down my earth green to start with this pond water, because I want it to have that green sort of algae sort of undertones. So this one has got a little bit more blue undertones compared to the earth green yellowish. So it's a good one to use for this, and it doesn't show up all that well, but you will see it if you are following along. Just go in nice and light, and we're going to build up slowly with lots of different colored layers with this one, and have them sort of morph together here and there, and little splotches of various colors here and there. So I'm just kind of making a bit of a circle, just like we did with the top picture. So I'm just sort of working this just on the outer side of the rocks and the flowers and the lily pad, and just sort of making a very sort of gentle circle area without going too overboard. I don't want a super harsh line or anything like that. So as you can see, I'm going in a little bit more just underneath certain things here. So just underneath the frog, where I think the frog might be casting a little bit of shadow. I'm just doing a bit more there, and then I am sort of underneath the lily pads and the flowers and things, and then leaving slightly lighter areas here and there where it's a little bit more open. So I'm going to go in now with my light ultramarine and just lay this on top of that earth green. So you don't necessarily have to go absolutely the same pressure all over the place. You can do a little bit of patches here and there so that we have different kind of areas with various little color changes happening here. So I'm sort of going again just a little bit darker where there's any kind of overlaps and things like that, where there's frogs on top or there's a lily pad or something like that, and then just lightening it up as it sort of going out into the little bit more open areas. So I'm just going to bring in some Indanthrene blue as my darker sort of areas here, and it's nice because it's a kind of a muted blue, so it's not super bright, and it's going to work in really nicely with these sort of earthy tones that we already have. So I'm kind of focusing on these sort of areas where there would be a bit of shadow, like I mentioned before, underneath rocks, underneath lily pads, those sort of areas there, and that way we get a bit of play on lights and shades in this water as well, so it doesn't look flat and uninteresting. Now I want to add in a little bit more green. So the Juniper green is really nice because it's got a lot of blue tones to it. So that's going to work out really well on top of these sort of blue and green tones that we already have. I was thinking of using some of like the cobalt greeny kind of colors, but I thought they were a little bit too bright. The Juniper green is still muted enough that it's not going to take over from that sort of bright orange head on that frog. I want that orange head to be like the focal point of this little tiny picture. So I just want to add a little bit more like algae kind of colors to these rocks, because I'm sure they've had some water on them and then they've had some growth. So I'm just going in with my May green and just adding a little bit sort of on top of the grey there. I'm still leaving that highlight, but just putting in just a little bit just to make it a bit more interesting. So I'm just going to finish off now by adding some Sakura Gelly roll to the highlighted sides of these little rocks. That will soften them up and it will give them a little bit more shape. And I did also end up removing the outer outlines of my lily pads as well. And I didn't end up filming that, I completely forgot. And then I went in on one of the lily pads there and I went in and darkened up the shadows again, and I completely forgot to press record, but you will see it on the final reveal. So it's the top left lily pad. I added a little bit of the more of the dark indigo just for the lines and that inner circle line as well. So here you go, here's our little frog, a little poison dart frog having a good old time on top of some little lily pad leaves in his little pond. So I thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed either following along or just checking it all out. I wish you all a colourful day and I will see you again next time.